Hey everybody, David here, and welcome to the ASOG podcast. In this episode, we are joined by Tom Ham, the president of Auto Centric in Grand Rapids, Michigan, as well as the founder of the Automotive Management Network. If you're not familiar with Tom, he tends to say out loud what no one else will. This made for a very interesting conversation as we spoke candidly about the ideas behind moving the industry forward. If you haven't already, make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast on your favorite podcast listening app. We're on every single one. If you're catching us on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button on this video. We're getting more and more views every single day through organic search results, and hitting the like button helps spread the word. If you'd like early access to each episode as well as the second part of our conversation on the podcast, head over to asog.site. That's ASOG.site and click on the Become a Patron Now button. All proceeds go to funding ASOG, a 501c3 educational charity, so your contribution is tax deductible. Becoming a VIP patron is only $9 a month. Now, with all that out of the way, here we go.
Tom?
Yes, sir.
How's life?
Not too bad. Is this a camera-free operation?
This is a camera-free operation.
Okay, because mine isn't working. I was going to say, I'm not seeing anything.
Well, hey, listen, here's the thing about what this really is. I think we need to put out there what this podcast is. David and I typically spent an hour on the phone most afternoons to the point our wives were yelling. And see, this is really just an excuse for us to sit around and BS, and we just call it a podcast. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what you got here. That's as good as it gets.
Well, that works.
Yeah.
That works.
I thought it would be cool to kind of have you share the vision of your organization and share kind of the concept. And I think that helps get some ASOG members aware of what you're doing there. But also, I want to kind of talk about where our industry needs to go as a whole. And I know it says it's recording, but and David and I talk about this often, but this is kind of behind the scenes chat. Tom, I feel like many of the organizations who are titled with advancing our industry are kind of dropping the ball a little bit. I'm worried that we aren't uniting our industry as a whole. And I'm worried that we're not moving forward in a singular direction. I talk to people from one organization and they say, our vision is this. I talk to another organization. They say, vision, what's that? And I talk to another organization and they're going in a completely different direction. I really believe that we need to get ourselves moving in a singular direction.
Yeah, I tell you, I opened my first shop. I got my first state of Michigan repair facility license in 1975. And shortly after that, I joined ASA.
Right.
And just like you say, a little inside baseball or behind the scenes type deal. It's the same now as it was 45 years ago.
Right.
Right. It's not any different. That's how it was then. And, you could almost make a political analogy. This is, the swamp operates to keep the swamp going, and that's what the swamp does. And that doesn't mean people's intentions are bad, but that's just
right.
That's just what it is. And if you get too far outside the box, then you're seen as rocking the boat, and we really don't like that. And so on.
Right. Absolutely.
How are you going to avoid that, Lucas?
Oh, they don't like me in the first place. I'm already rocking the boat. So,
I've said a lot worse than that on air. I'm good with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the reality is that the way that we avoid rocking a boat, the way that we bring about change is we get everybody talking on the same topic. We get them talking to the same tune. And I think that at some point we bring our industry together through connections, right? And get these organizations and I've talked to Carm a little bit about the fact that the PAVE event is probably one of the first times many of these organizations have even thought about working together. But I also
there's a similar event going on about the same time.
Right. I saw that. Okay. But I mean, I guess my thought is we're more connected than we've ever been, right? We've through Facebook, through other social media. Yeah. Sure. We're more connected than we've ever been. And I think if we use membership sites or groups like ASOG, and like yours or however it be, to talk about the issues that are really present in our industry and say, look, we want to have a consistent thing that we're trying to fix, right? Is it the tech shortage? Is it this? Is it that? There's lots of things that need some attention in our industry. We have an image problem, right? We've talked about ASC certification.
Because our image is accurate, we have a problem.
Well, okay. Valid point.
He's got you there, Lucas.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. Right,
he's got you there.
It is as valid.
I'd like to point out, Tom. Hold on. Tom, you are the first person that we've had on here that we've had a conversation about that didn't just make the assumption that everybody was altruistic. I'm telling you, everybody just makes the assumption like, oh, we're all honest, good, hardworking people, doing the right thing 100% of the time, and people just don't understand what it is that we're doing out here. People just don't get it. How do we get them to understand? And that's how the conversation always goes. How do we get them to understand? Tom's the first one that goes, it's accurate. Everybody's a dirtbag.
That's kind of like customer education. The problem with that is a lot of customers don't want to be educated.
No, they don't care.
So what we do is we piss them off by trying to educate them.
Right. They want their car fixed.
Exactly.
Right? They don't care about the car. They don't care about, and they're the ones that come into my shop and throw me the keys and say, fix it.
Exactly.
Right? And I think that at least understanding what it is that your customer wants. We talk about discovery conversations from time to time. Yeah. If you don't understand what your customer wants, I mean, good God, don't try and educate them.
You could spend one evening reading a good book on disc testing, DISC, and learn how to separate the customers out, and then that'll be a invaluable asset just to understand who's across the counter from you and address them accordingly.
I agree 110%. So let me ask you this then, considering you brought up a very valid point that we have a industry image problem, literally. How do we fix it?
I think you can come up with a set of reasonably high standards,
right?
And get people to work towards that with kind of a common goal. Ultimately, it's kind of a separation. There's not going to be unity among all shops because there's a couple of different. There's a lot of different, but there's kind of two different directions in the shops, and there's the people who more or less want to be professional and those who don't, and to take the ones that don't and try to bring them along is kind of a exercise in futility. So just let them wander off and do whatever they do, and get the people who want to be professional and boast that we are such. And you can also do some. Overall, you can have some general marketing to that effect too. You're looking for professionals, and here's how you find them.
Right. Right. And so we've talked about it. I don't know if you heard, we had Chris Chesney on and we've had some others on. We've talked about regulation. We've talked about a couple different, ways to move forward with this. Right.
One thing
are you anti-regulation?
Is if anybody brings up licensing, cut their mic. God, that is, I mean, you can see how well the government's handled the election over the last 30 days. Let's have them handle auto repair.
I'm totally leaving that in, Lucas.
I mean, what?
I'm not cutting that out.
I'm good with it.
What is it's absolutely insane. There's a lot of people out there, and I understand it's ignorance in the classic sense. In other words, they have this vision of what licensing could be, but it's not unlike socialism or communism. It sounds really good, but every time you try it, it doesn't work.
Right.
I said that before. I think Cecil got mad at me when I said that one time, but there's a lot of truth in it. See, I'm in Michigan. Michigan passed its licensing law in 1975 when I first started out. And at the time, there were only 3 states into it. I think it was mainly Hawaii, Michigan, and California a little bit. But Hawaii and Michigan were the toughest ones. And very tough regulations, so on and so forth. And it hasn't made any difference. It's been 45 years. And it's no different here than it is in an unlicensed state today.
Right.
As far as all it has done is I have, over that period of time, it's a long period of time, I've spent over $25,000 in licensing fees. And I could have bought equipment or done something useful for my customers. Instead, the state just hired people and burned it up. And licensing is just a total disaster. It doesn't do anything. Sorry for the tangent there, but that's
no.
If you want to talk about going forward, you got to kill that stupid licensing idea. It's just a bad idea. Fix the image. I did a thing on that on Carm's show on what technicians want from professional shop owners and what professional shop owners want from professional technicians. And it has everything to do with from training to hygiene and everything in between. The way professional people act and conduct themselves and present themselves and interact and the whole deal. That's the big thing with the image right there.
Yes, I agree.
You're going to have to, the whole deal. And the whole deal of people misunderstand me. Say I kind of feel like Trump. I don't have any personal problem. If somebody wants to be tattooed from head to toe and all kinds of body metal hanging out of their body and got ponytails and whatever, if they want to do that, more power to. I have no problem with it at all. I do have a problem when I'm trying to sell a product to a customer and my customers aren't impressed with that. See?
Right.
So I have a certain image I want to present to customers. Go on the internet and surf and pick up the Disney guidelines for hiring. They went a little talk about trimming fingernails and things. We should be looking at that instead of looking at in Portland, can we legalize cocaine in automotive repair?
Well, and that brings up a really valid point, because that was one of the things that came up in ASOG, and you had some folks who were really divided in either direction. And I think that there are many different ways that we can measure someone's professionalism, right? And
sure.
I believe that we have to start somewhere in our industry as far as what that goes. How do we begin to put that in place? And for me personally, through standardization in the shop, right? Policies, procedures, a way we do things. It's done the same way every single time. Everybody is aware of what's going on in the shop. We're communicating. And that's how we choose to bring that forward. Now, some of my guys, I don't think I have anybody here right now that's tattooed. One of them's got a little bit longer hair. One of them has no hair. He'll listen to this later and love that. He does have hair, but it's, one of those 2-foot wraparound deals. Sorry, Eric.
What's wrong with that? Why are you knocking that?
Jeez.
But I guess
it looks good on some of them.
Yeah, not this one. My point is that I think we start somewhere with a standard, right? And you bring up Disney. One of the big changing points for me was I sat in one of Malin Newton's classes, and Malin was talking about customer service, and he was talking about Disney. And I sat through that whole class, and I realized like the main topic that kept coming to mind, and he never said this, but the main topic that kept coming to my mind was, oh my God, customer service is not about me. It's about the customer. And I think that we kind of like, we missed that a little bit. And as an industry, I think we missed it as a whole. And I've talked to, I spent the better part of the morning talking with a shop owner who's talking about his financials, and he's talking about what he charges. And I think as an industry, or as independent shops especially, many of us look and we think the number one thing that we should do for our customer today is make our repairs super cheap, right? We think that's how we're like serving the customer the best way possible. And price has very, very little to do with how we serve our customer and the quality of the product we provide to them.
Sure. It'd be fun to pose that question to a room full of better customers and watch them go, why?
Right. Right.
And watch the shop owner go, huh?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And people are looking for oversimplify it. I've seen it. Several people teach it. They have a problem. They want it solved. Life is moving fast. There's a million problems, just like David talked about his day to day. There's all this stuff going on, and I don't want to get involved in all this minutia of a couple dollars here, there, whatever. I have this, there's a green puddle in my garage. I'd like it gone for a reasonable amount of money, and I need the car back as fast as possible. Can you do that? That's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And every single time a customer questions me, I never think it was the price that they were upset about. There's some that I can tell, and I think we all have that experience. We can recognize that it's the price they're worried about. But the majority of the time, I recognize that I did not properly explain the value. And, I'll give you an example. I had a F-350 in that got a tremendous amount of work. It got an oil cooler, some other stuff. And I realized about, 5 minutes after the conversation ended with the customer, that he didn't understand what I was saying. I wasn't explaining it in a way he could understand it. And the reason being is when we got off the phone, he said, so you think that'll be done by this afternoon? And this was at 3:00, and we're talking about an 18-hour job. And I thought, he doesn't understand the magnitude of what we're talking about. He can't see that in a time frame, right? He doesn't understand how in depth this is. I've not explained it clearly. And I think we all too often go back and we look at the one thing that we always come back to is, oh, it must be too expensive. And the number of posts in ASOG that come back to, well, she said I was unprofessional, but I know it wasn't that. It's just because I charged more than other people, or it was, and we never address the elephant in the room, if you will.
No, and so often if you have an estimate for $2,500 and maybe the customer, you don't know them all that well, it's kind of getting the thing going. And you have a service advisor, and you throw them back in office there and close the door and say, "Yeah, come out when you've sold the job. Don't I want to hear you until then?" It's kind of like, well, what do? I just sit back in there and talk to them. Well, if they say no, well, then that means you got to talk to them some more. I mean, in a nice way. I'm not talking about harassment. I'm talking about let's talk about it. Why don't you want to do that? Our primary service advisor right now is the DISC. He would be I believe influencer. I think that's right. I don't know. I always do him the Gary Smalley thing, which is lion, otter, beaver, and golden retriever. If you're familiar with the 4 animals, they relate to the DISC with the DISC. And he's the golden retriever, which is very, very empathetic, very caring, talk to people all day long. But he's easily distracted. So we have him kind of closed off from the rest of the staff. And we try to keep him not interacting with anybody other than the customers. And he'll get on the phone and he'll talk to him, and he'll talk and he'll talk and he'll talk and he'll talk and he'll talk. And then finally he comes out and says, 1,800, here we go. Right. And this is a guy, you look at the car and you look at the customer who come in and you're going, that's $150 on a good day. And then it goes out for 1,800. But that's just interacting with the people, finding out what they need and satisfying their need and letting them know it's a good value and logically making sense why you should do this instead of buying another car and on, all the standard stuff. But I think we're in too much of a hurry to get off the phone and get on to the next thing and get the parts ordered and interact with the technicians and all that. And the service advisors can't do that. They really need to be somebody who really interacts well with people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I'm going to say this. We talked about tattoos and long hair and the whole 9 yards. And those of you who know Scott, who worked for me, Scott had the tattoos and the bald head and the long goatee, and customers loved him. Even some of our more reserved customers really enjoyed working with him. And for Scott, it wasn't so much that when they came in, they didn't see that after getting to know Scott. And after that initial telephone call with Scott, they realized Scott genuinely cared about them. They realized that he was really interested in their best interest. And so I think they overlooked some of that. But I kind of look at professionalism on a scale, right? So I say, like, you can not have this area of professionalism, but if your language skills suck, you can't look like a goofball, and I think there's different levels to that. What do you say when we're talking about professionalism on the front counter? You have definitely spoken your mind when it comes to the tattoos and the long hair and the earrings and stuff like that. How do we weigh that out? Right? Let's say that we've got somebody that comes through the front door. They're applying for that service advisor position. They're really, really strong. They've got great communication skills. When do you say, hey, listen, I'm sorry, it's not a good fit because of something like this? What are your thoughts on that?
Tell them. I mean, or am I reading? Maybe I'm not understanding your question.
No, I mean, I think you're perfectly in line. I'm saying, do you overlook some of those other skills that they have where they're really strong just based on that one factor? Or are you willing to overlook some of this?
Yeah, the first impression thing is absolutely massive. People come in and they see who's on the other side of the counter. And I want the guy to, trying to think of a good example, but just out of popular culture, but whether it's male or female,
right?
Clean cut. I mean, ready to go to Sunday school. That's the closer you can get to that image, the better your percentage of first impressions will be. It's that simple. It's a statistic. It's a mathematical thing. It has nothing to do with people's feelings and how they look, et cetera, et cetera. I always get a kick out of people will do all kinds of stuff to look funny with their hair, with their clothes, et cetera, et cetera. And then you walk by them in the mall and you look at them, they look back at you and say, what the hell are you looking at me? I say, well, you went out of your way to look that way, so I would look at you, you moron.
I mean, valid point.
That's why I'm looking at you. But it's a simple mathematical calculation. Disney said this is a family experience. So I want everybody here to look like the perfect brother, the perfect sister, the perfect aunt, whatever, nice and perfectly clean cut, because that simply improves your percentages.
Right.
Of making the sale. It has nothing to do with anybody's freedom or independence and all this other stuff. You can do that, but then you know, if you really want to be out there, then you can't go to the conference and say, I don't understand why customers won't accept me and I can't make $500,000 a year net profit. Well, I can tell you, you know, you don't want to, because if you did, then you would change your behavior.
Does that mean we can ask David to shave his beard? I mean, we've been trying to get David to shave his beard for years now. I mean, David, I think
I look like a homeless person when I go to work. Are you kidding me?
I obviously the culture's loosened up a bit. I mean, I grasp that too. But it depends a little bit where you are, so on and so forth. But there's some borders, there's some boundaries. When you jump over those boundaries, you're going to lose people. They're going to walk in the front door. They're going to talk to you, and they're just going to leave. And for a quote, no good reason, except they didn't like what they saw. That's it.
I agree.
And that costs me money as a shop owner. That takes money out of my grocery money.
Right. And I think
that's
some
not
of that,
fair to me.
I think some of that plays into your target clientele. Right. I think that comes back to the avatar of the client to some degree. Now, you know, we come into this thing and Carm said something to me years ago that kind of has always stuck with me. And he was talking about his previous businesses. And he said, I realized that we were a relational organization serving a transactional customer. And I realized that I had to serve both customers, the relational customers and the transactional customers. And for some reason that always stuck with me. And I know it's a little bit off topic here. But it's always just kind of stuck with me because I realized that we have to serve a multitude of customers, and we need to be in the most neutral ground as possible. And be able to serve them where they want to be served at. You know, I said that I recognized that customer service was not about me. It was about the customer. Well, we have to serve them where they want to be served in many ways. I'm not saying let them walk all over you, but I'm saying that we have to serve them and meet their expectations, understand what their expectations are, and meet those expectations. So I definitely think there's something to say if we can start with a neutral ground that Mrs. Smith doesn't walk in and think, oh, this guy, I feel uncomfortable. Right. And, you know, I don't think that having a beard or tattoos or this or that is necessarily going to make someone uncomfortable. I think it has to be handled properly.
No, right? Here's what you got to think about when you're gonna hire people, and this can be whether you're hiring a service advisor, whether you're hiring a technician, whoever. Is I would think for most of us, maybe not everybody, but you know, if you talk about ideal target customers, well, if we take a white collar guy, some kind of executive of one kind or another, he's salary $200,000-300,000 a year, maybe more. Nice house, nice cars, nice family to go with it. You know, got his daughter a really nice used car. That's whatever it is. It's a used car, but still $25,000-30,000. Nice used car. You know, he hangs out at the country club. It's pretty nice looking situation. And he has a 16-year-old daughter. And her car has a noise. And he wants to be able to send her with that car down to your repair shop and go for a ride with one of your technicians to show the noise. And he wants to feel 100% confident and safe in that decision.
Wouldn't we all?
So if you look at your staff and you say, do you think that guy is going to feel comfortable with Fred out there, looking at Fred, and you go, I may have a problem.
Right.
So that's the kind of analogy I use. They say, you know, people say, well, I don't care about that customer, et cetera. Well, but you can't tell me you want to really make money and be highly profitable, highly successful and not care about that customer, because that's part of the way you get there.
Amen. Amen.
So this just goes back to the image thing. I've had this discussion for 40 years, and it's just, it'll always be there. But I think, you go into the real ultra successful shops, there's a certain look you'll see.
I agree. I see it all the time. So what are the other image problems you see with our industry?
Yeah, it's applying this. Appearance is everything, which means appearance of the facility from a long distance down the road to pulling in the parking lot to the landscaping to the building, to the uniform. It's all the visuals, not most of them. It's everything. It's every visual thing has a value to it. Are you asking about something beyond that?
Well, so I guess my question is, if we want to fix our industry, right? Let's have this pipe dream that there's something we could do, right? Whether it be ASOG, through your website, through this podcast. If there were three things that we could do to improve our industry tomorrow, if every shop owner listening took action, what would those three things be? What would be the big thing that you think would make the biggest difference in our industry?
See, if I went back in time a few years, I'd think of a George Witt class where he said paint, soap, and lights.
Right.
There's the image of the people. There's the image of all the other stuff and how it looks. I wasn't given this a topic ahead of time, so I didn't have a lot of time to dwell and think about this. And
that's
come
the
up
whole
with a
point,
really
right?
witty answer.
Yeah, we like to put people on the spot, make them as uncomfortable as possible. Makes for a good podcast.
It really does.
It sounds, it's oversimplifying it, but we kind of come back. I see myself coming back to Disney again, or you could also take a well-run McDonald's. It's fast. It's clean. It's reasonably priced. It's responsive. It's efficient. I
think
got all your answers, Lucas. What else do you want out of the guy? Don't beat him up over it.
No. That's good. I'm glad that I'm thinking as we're talking here, but
so I'm gonna throw you a juxtaposition here because you take somebody. Are you familiar with Juke Automotive in Austin?
No, I'm not.
So I was in the same consultancy group as Juke, and he was. They used him as sort of the end-all be-all. Like, if you go through our entire program, you could be a Juke Automotive as well.
Okay.
The guy is he looks like Austin, Texas. When you think of Austin, Texas, that's what he looks like, and
Cool.
That's what his shop looks like. And that's what his employees look like. Where you could take another shop, the same look, maybe not as polished. I wouldn't even call it polished. It's eclectic. I don't even know. It's well thought out. His look, his setup, the way his employees look, the logo, everything seems cohesive and thought out and reflective of his personality. But you could take a shop somewhere else in a different area, and maybe they're serving people like people you would meet in Austin, maybe not. But you would take an owner that looks like the owner of Juke Automotive, and they may not be as successful as Juke Auto's been. Where do you think the difference lays? Because if you think of the Disney image, and you're absolutely right. I went through Disney training as well, and you should see their manual. I mean, they've got the smallest detail lined out. So what you can look like, what you can have tattoos, you just got to be covered up.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to walk into Disney with gauges or scruffy facial hair. That's not going to happen.
We were down there last week. We were down there last week. We could not get in because they were full.
Yeah.
We tried to get in. We could not get in.
Yeah, and so lots of people go there, but if you looking at the Disney position or the Disney look,
Mm-hmm.
They don't look anything like that. So I mean, how would you explain that? So that's going to be the pushback. Everybody's going to listen to this and they're going to say, well, look at Juke Auto. Or, you got into it with, I think, David Friend and somebody else way back on ASOG because you called out facial hair. I have a beard, right? Whatever. I didn't take any offense to it, but these other guys, they got really upset that you called out facial hair.
And let's be completely clear here, David, if you didn't have a beard, I don't think anybody
I didn't always have a beard.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, you've put on a few pounds and, taking the beard off.
I've always been a chunky guy. Now, don't distract. Listen, don't distract. So the pushback's going to be, they're going to say, look at, because you take a David Friend who's got tattoos all over his arms, or big beard, lots of facial hair, and he's very successful. And he's going to be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Look at me. Or look at a Juke Auto. So,
well, yeah, so is Gas Monkey, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's the look also.
Okay, but see, it's part of the, in your case, you're talking about something that's a little bit specialized. It's almost part of the shtick, you might say. It's kind of unique, and it's part of the brand or whatever that makes it somewhat unique. But when you get to the fundamentals of being on time, of being, I'll bet the place isn't dirty. I mean, it may be different, but dirty is not cool. Late is not cool. Inefficient is not cool. Getting the car fixed right is not. There's a whole lot of stuff that's right straight up that still is part of that operation. I'll guarantee you they probably have manuals and procedures and details and inspections and checklists, and they have all kinds of stuff so that thing runs like a fine-tuned watch. It may look a little odd.
Juke Auto's a machine. I mean, they've got it tuned down.
So they have a part of their brand is this shtick thing that you're describing. That's different. That's different.
Right. And
just so everybody understands, and that's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that just so everybody understands, I think, Tom, you're not specifically picking on tattoos or gauges or facial hair or whatever, right?
No, because if I could probably make an argument that if you took all this, if you took the whole deal of a range of all these funky looking things, if you're going to open a shop in downtown San Francisco, those might be prerequisites to doing that. To look like you belong there, to your part of the community. If you came in there and you look like Disney, they might not trust you. But that's unique. Everybody thinks, there's 1 out of 10,000 shops in downtown San Francisco, and there's some in Texas that have a certain shtick. But generally, we're talking about this is one thing that bugs me with our culture nowadays is everybody wants to talk about the exceptions. Nobody wants to talk about the 95%. Let's just talk about the 5%, which is kind of insane. Why do we do that? Why don't we talk about the 95% and the 5% of the people can learn to go along? I mean, that's the way it ought to be.
Yeah, well, it stands out. That's what you notice. You notice the exceptions. Well, the rest of it just is noise.
If it stands out good, that's a good thing, but usually it's not because it does that. But, I challenge people to, go to the shops that, go to the 10 or 12 bay shop that's doing $3 or $4 million a year, and the guy has a net income of $500,000, and go take a look. That's all. Don't listen to me. Just go hang out at his shop and see what it's like.
I can agree with that. So moving on, back to the topic that we were supposed to talk about.
What? This is the topic.
What is the topic we're supposed to?
There is no topic. That's the point. There's no topic, Lucas. What are you talking about? There's no topic.
Sorry.
Well,
let's listen to Tom Ham rant.
Oh, God.
So just poke the bear. What else can we get him ranting about?
So this
you want to here? Oh, okay.
Let's talk about the election some more.
I'll wander. Well, no, you're closer than you think. I'll tell you what. I tell you here things that irritate me a little bit. We kind of covered several of them. I'll give you another one. It's kind of an off the wall type thing. I've been frustrated for 4 years now on how I talk to people, and I'm trying to be completely serious, and they don't take me seriously. Is I tell them that there's about a dozen books that Donald J. Trump wrote on running a business that have nothing to do with politics. Absolutely nothing. And they are some of the most fantastic books by a successful businessman you will ever read. I've read 6 of them. I'm on my 7th one. And there is stuff in there. If people wanted to succeed, they start out with Art of the Deal and work their way up. And he wrote several of them with Kiyosaki too, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad guy. And they're just really amazingly good management books, and people just blow them off because it's Donald Trump and it's got to be garbage or some insane stuff. But if they can separate that out, they really could learn a lot by getting into that. So there's something off the wall. And you talk about a guy, you never see that guy who is not in a 3-piece, $5,000 or $10,000 suit, and he is a clean freak. If you've ever been to any of the Trump properties, they are sterile. He's a neat freak, a clean freak organization. Honesty. His people. One thing he will not tolerate is dishonesty. He's one of the most honest people on the planet. And his management style is really fantastic too. So anyway,
that's interesting.
There's my rant on Trump, which I wish more people would pick up those books and learn. Anyway.
Well, he's become divisive now, and so.
Oh, for heaven's sake!
You can't.
If somebody had a really good management book, I don't know, by Obama or somebody, if it was really good on running a business, I'd read it. Who cares?
It's about the content. I will say it's about the content.
I'll probably cut this portion out, but you wouldn't get a high quality business book out of the left ever for any reason. Just so you know. They don't run businesses. They go into bureaucracy, okay?
Oh, my God.
You said that. I didn't.
Lucas.
Leave that in. It makes me look less weird.
Hey, I'm not saying anything that's not true. It's absolutely true.
Oh, my God. Here we go. So I do want to talk about AMN though, right? I definitely want to make sure that we touch on that, talk about what it is, talk about what's the why behind AMN, and what's the vision? Where's it going?
Well, I'm going to kind of take the just for fun, I'm going to take the last part. I'm a little bit different on the vision thing than a lot of people. I'm probably not as big on vision and goals as a lot of people are. I do believe that if you are doing something really well and you do it in kind of a logical, rational way, you don't necessarily have to have a great vision and a great set of goals to be wildly successful. But that's another discussion we can have. The way we started in the first place is I wanted to discuss, I love software. So I wanted to discuss management software to a greater degree than was being done on IATN. IATN had an open forum, and eventually they added a shop management forum. And those things were touched on a little bit, but I wanted something a little bit more focused. So I think my wife she looked it up. And we just put one of these little freebie website things where you put a forum together, and I just start emailing people. I said, "Come on, we happen to use Mitchell software at the time, or one of 35 versions of Mitchell at that time, because there were a lot of Mitchell spinoffs." And we talked about software, and then there were some other people said, well, maybe there's some other topics we could get into. And, well, why don't you do some of this with some of the content that you have? And you got to figure out some way to monetize it so you're not doing this completely for free. and on and on. And today the website there's over 25,000 pages in the website today. It's the biggest website in the world for vehicle service management information. Matter of fact, it always has been after its first couple of years. And most of it's free. And we get feedback regularly from people who say they learned so much, and they've been a member for 10, 15 years, and they've just learned so much out of there. But it's never been a big financial deal. I mean, we do pretty well. We're doing better all the time as far as income goes. But at the risk of sounding too altruistic or whatever, the foundation of the industry, to me, is a guy and his wife in a 2 or 3 bay shop. That's the foundation of the industry. Those are the people who generate everything, who make it run. That's where it all starts. Then maybe they got a helper or something like that, but it's those little shops, and we furnish information to them, most of it free. They can't afford to drop however many thousands of dollars a year to hire the big management thing. Maybe they really can if they knew how, but they really don't feel that they can, and maybe they can't. So they can come to our site. They can get a lot of information for free. If they take their time and go through it, we've made it really easy to search. So now you can find anything you want pretty fast. And we got all kinds of good advice on there. We got some really heavy hitters on there. Donate their information to us. So we're helping these little guys. And we get big guys too. Every once in a while I'll be on chat and I'll talk to somebody and he'll ask me a couple of questions about this and that, and I'll answer them, and I'll say something about it, and I'll say, well, where's your shop and how is it? Well, it's 45 bays. I go, holy crap. It's 45 bays? It's a truck stop. And I'm just talking to this guy and figured, he probably makes more than I do in a week than I do in a year. But there's all these different shop owners on there. And we just wanted to furnish information for them and provide something where it's affordable. And we want to make some money too, but basically the way it's always been from the beginning is what we take in, we just put back in. And we went past $250,000 a while back. It's probably 300,000 more of money that we put into the website. And we just keep generating money and just goes back in. And we take a little bit out for this and that, but we just keep expanding it and growing it. And every year it's gotten bigger every year that it's been around. So that's me rambling on about our network a little bit.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think that the shop management software interface that you have is extremely powerful. Right. And I think that was probably the biggest thing for me with the site, is the ability, because, that's one of the things that happens in ASOG a lot. Somebody will ask about a feature. Somebody will ask a question about a software. And the reality is that there's a lot of softwares, and a lot of them have different ways and different thought processes around how they do it. Right. And one of the interesting things that I've learned is, and I'm a shopware user, and as I talked to Carolyn more and more, I began to understand how it was that she intended for the software to work. And that was really huge for me. So, when I get into AMN and I begin to look, I see so many questions within just the shop management software, where you've got it kind of set up on the spreadsheet, and I can look and see what those features are. I look at that and I say, I never even thought about that feature. I never even thought to ask if you offered that feature. So that was really huge for me. And that's one of the things that I always go back and I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I chose the right software. There's a software out there that does this. My wife's like, you shut up. You just shut up. You just shut up. So where
the software is going, the things are moving really, really fast right now, and they're accelerating. And what the software is going to do, people are really going to have to get into technology and accept it and embrace it, or they're going to get left behind.
What's the one piece of advice? So let's say that we've got a shop owner that's listening, and he says, "Hey, he or she says, I am going to switch shop management softwares." I mean, if I hear one more person say, "I have Mitchell," I don't even know what I'm going to do. What is the piece of advice you would give them? What shopping advice do you have for somebody that's on the verge of switching management softwares? What would you say?
Well, some of it's pretty obvious. You definitely want to talk to users, not just one maybe that the software recommended, but see if you can search out users, and not just 2 or 3, but see if you can, make a number like 10. Talk to 10 people and ask them to tell you all the good, bad, and everything about the software. I would say don't look for the perfect software, because it isn't. It's an evolving thing. And it's almost this goes back to the 80-10 rule. If you can find a software you're 80% happy with, I always say the same with employees. If you get to 80%, you're doing good. Don't screw with it.
Right.
That's a good way to go. I think a lot of shop owners today do not view the software correctly. By that, I mean the software is the hub of the operation. Everything revolves around the software, or should be plugged into and revolve around the software. Now, and also, you shouldn't be serving the software. The software should be serving you. There's softwares that are way too complex to use.
Right. Right.
The software that we use now, the technicians do use it. Not as much as a service advisor and so on. But the nice thing about technicians is the last technician that we still have, I should say, when we hired him and got him into the software, and we checked with him on how's it coming as far as the learning. And he said, "Yeah, I had it pretty well done by noon. By lunchtime, I had it pretty well down."
Right.
As opposed to so many softwares where, we're about 3 months into it, and I think we're starting to learn it. It might be too complex.
Hey, that's a really valid point. So when I started looking at software, I talked to David a little bit, and I said, "Hey, what do you recommend?" And I said, "I'm looking at these options." And he said, "You need to really think about onboarding." And I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because you always talk about how you hate training people." And he's like, "If you hate training people, why would you go get the most advanced software on the market that has all these bells and whistles and spots you can click and all these things that you can do? Because it's going to be really tough to onboard somebody." And I thought, I never even thought about that. That's a very valid point. I
think what a lot of people don't realize is how really good software, what really, really good software does is it takes something that you now spend a fair amount of time on. It's fairly complex, and it completely automates it. And what I mean by completely automates it is you forget that the process even exists, because it all occurs in the background in milliseconds without you doing anything.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, and when we made the switch, we had some workflow problems in the shop, and my shop coach came down for the weekend, and we sat around the shop and we talked about and went over how we were doing it now. And he said, "Why don't you send Carolyn a message and see if she can spend a few minutes with us talking about her thought process on how shopware was supposed to work?" And I said, "That's a good idea." And in an hour and 45 minutes, I had a whole new appreciation for how shopware did what shopware did. Right. And this isn't a plug for shopware. It's just, that's what I use. So it's the experience I can share. And so in that process, all of a sudden we found ourselves saying, we could implement a little bit of her thought process and how the shop works, right? We can change a little bit of the workflow in the shop to work around the software, like you said, because the software becomes kind of the hub of the shop. It becomes the center. And it just made things tremendously smoother for us because we had this whole new understanding of how she envisioned the software working. And I think there's a lot of softwares you can do that with. You can do that with TechMetric. You can do that with Shopware. And we're, as a connected society, we're more connected to those people who have that information and can help us through that. So I think that's a really awesome thing about where we're at right now. But, I think you're 100% right. The software is the hub of the shop, and it's very important we build our workflow around that and understand how they envision that workflow working.
And a lot of times that can be done even with a lot of times people will say, well, I've got to go software shopping. And sometimes the answer is, well, not necessarily. Maybe you're not using the software you have properly.
Right.
Maybe you just need to learn to use it more efficiently and blow out certain features of it that are just wasting your time and use more primary features. Maybe what you've got is pretty good. You just need a little training, a little learning, and just refocusing on what you have. Right.
Absolutely. And to those who just want to switch just to switch, it is not easy. I mean, one switch is about all it takes for you to realize, I hope I made the right decision because I'm not willing to do it again.
I've got a buddy of mine not too far from here, Greg, and I won't mention the name of your shop, Greg, your last name, so they figure out who you are. But hey, he's been around, I think, I'm going to say 15 years. And he's on his 10th or 12th software.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I couldn't. I'm going to tell you right now, that'd be it for me. I'd just go out of business. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. No way.
So I tell people, if you want a second opinion, call Greg. He's probably used it.
Greg, I'm sorry. That's tough.
He's happy now. He's got one he's had for about 3 years now, and he's happy. So I think he finally settled down.
Well, I did a trial on a piece of software one time, and the sales rep came out and he said, man, you're going to really love this software. It's one of the best softwares out there. I'm not going to tell you what it was. You'll figure it out, I'm sure. And he opened up his laptop and he said, now this links with your local part vendor that you're affiliated with. It works really well. And all you got to do is, it's very fast. And he opens up his computer and he says, well, let's order while it loads. And a few minutes later, he said, oh, man, my computer crashed. And he reboots his computer and he pulls it up and he said, guys, I'm not so sure that I'm thinking something's wrong with my computer. This software. And every time he's getting blue screens and all this stuff every time he opened the software. And I said, if the sales rep can't even get it to load on his computer, I think I'm good. I think I'll pass. And so I'm really happy. And that was one of the places I saw some comments about that software on AMN and learned a lot about it before we made that decision because that software was free. And I'm sure it would have cost me $50,000 just trying to keep it working. So
I'll throw out a couple of quick pieces of information since we seem to be wandering all over the place and it seems to be okay that the boundaries seem fairly wide. For one question to ask, and it's a little bit of an off the wall question until you get bit and then you'll wish you would have asked it. And that's, okay, Mr. Software Salesman or company or whoever you are that wants to sell me this software. If I have your software for a period of time and I decide to switch, can I have my history?
Oh, that's a big one.
Because there's at least 2 companies I know of out there. They'll say, sure, you can have your history. You have to remain subscribed, though, so you're going to have to continue to pay us your monthly fee to be able to see it.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's ours.
That's a rough one.
And there's at least 2 companies out there that do it, and they're, I consider them unscrupulous. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to get sued. But that's one question to ask. Another completely unrelated question, since we, if people tune in here looking for advice, if you want to, your next budget and spending, if you haven't already done this at your shop, and this would be every computer in your building. And if you have computers at home with a remote office, say the same thing. Go on the internet and look up, how do I find out what kind of drive my computer has? It's relatively simple process to do. And what you're looking for is you're looking to see whether it's an SSD, a solid state drive. And if you have a computer, any computer that is not a solid state drive, call your nearest computer repair shop, take it down there, and have it swapped tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Because what'll happen is you'll get it back and you go, oh my God, my computer is somewhere between 10 and 25 times faster than it was yesterday.
Yep, absolutely.
I just had one done today, and you're only talking $200-300, and it'll be the best month. Your technicians will be so happy. Your service advisor will be happy. They'll be kissing you.
Well, look, I'm going to tell you right now, years ago, I kind of learned the lesson with SSDs versus conventional drives, and we lost a conventional drive, right? And I was really smart because I had been backing up All Data Manage at the time on a USB drive. And it lost that drive, and I said, we're all right. We've got the backup. And I reached up and I plugged the drive in, and one of the pins was bent in the USB port on the computer. And it shorted the USB drive, and we lost everything. And All Data was really good about getting us straightened back out. But I mean, it was a miserable process, like all of our customer history. So, now we've got this thing and people laugh at us. I have every single service record, paper, printed, signed in a filing cabinet in my office since that happened. I mean, there wasn't a single day that went by after that I don't have the service record signed and in my desk or in my filing cabinet. And we talk about it. I will say that All Data does give you access to their history, and I will give them credit. They were really good to work with. They gave us all of our files, and still I have access to that. And, I still log into my All Data Manage account when I need information. I look at it and I say, man, they have really gotten better. There's some really cool features here. There's some things I miss here. So, I think it's cool to look back at an old piece of software you had and realize that it wasn't as bad as you really thought it was. So,
Tom, you want a boost in speed, go to an NVMe setup, especially for larger files. NVMe, it's an SSD, but it goes into a PCIe slot.
Okay.
And if you're running a larger program, put it on the NVMe.
We run everything on a cloud.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, some things if you have to download it onto a hard drive, run it off the NVMe to have it local. It'll pull up so fast.
Okay,
it'll blow your mind. It's crazy.
I love the gadgetry, the speed, and all that. And to ask the question, recommendations on software, and of course now I'm thinking about it as we're talking. Another one would be when you talk to other people about it, see if they operate paperlessly, because you want one that works really well. You can be paperless, first of all, with almost any software if you're a little bit creative, number one. Right. But some of them are much more, prone to work well paperlessly. And that should be a goal for everybody with their shop, whether you're switching software or not switching software, is to get rid of paper.
Yes.
You should just look at it as an evil thing that you try to avoid at all costs. I think matter of fact, we got at our shop, we got a box of paper today, and I think it's our annual box of paper that we buy.
Right.
Seriously.
Yeah. I get those calls too from the office supply place. They're like, oh, I've got paper on sale. It's like, man, I buy a case every 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Like, you can't entice me with paper. I'm sorry. I don't use it.
we go back in the shop, and it's kind of funny because we'll be back in the shop, or I'll even be at my desk, and somebody will say, "Can you write this down?" And I'll say, "Yeah," and I'll say, "Well, wait a minute, I got to find a pen." There's no pens around here. That's how paperless we got, and we got the customers well trained to just do that. So that's a very efficient thing, and the only reason a shop is not paperless is more or less it's a mindset thing. It's just a habit type thing. It's very easy to go paperless once you get your mind in the right position. It also saves you a lot of money, a lot of time. It just everything is a lot cleaner and better paperlessly. So anyway.
I agree.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the ASOG podcast. For our patrons, we will have the second half of our conversation with Tom on our Patreon page. So make sure you become a patron to catch that extra content. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. We'd greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit that like button. The algorithm is sending Lucas death threats, and the only way they say they will stop is if you hit that like button. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, or if you have any topic suggestions, please reach out to me via email. My email address is david@asog.site. That's DAVID@ASOG.SITE. Until next time.